Hello, I'm Christine Schiavone, and our show is Spiritual Exploration. Tonight, we're going to talk about the planetary shift and what that is and what it means to us and how it'll affect us and our lives. And here to explain all this, I have to my immediate left Charlie Gonzalez, who is a guest on my show, The Fourth Dimension, with the 13 Skulls, if you'll recall. I don't know, whoever saw it. And then next to him is Matthew Canale. And next to him is Miquel Colmenares. And welcome, gentlemen, to the Spiritual Exploration. And as I said before we started the show, I'm going to ask you, what is the planetary shift and how does it affect us? So you can start, Charlie.
Thanks so much, Christine. It's really nice to be back here in the studio with you.
Good to have you.
Jenny and I had such a great time last time that we were here.
Yeah.
And actually, it's funny, you know, somebody had written to us.
Really?
After that had seen the show, and and we actually met up with them last night, right before the show. So it seemed like a good, nice synchronicity.
Wow.
And I think that kind of leads into what this planetary shift is about. You know, it's more. I think it's about synchronicity, in a way.
Yeah.
But I think it's really about following synchronicity and not being afraid of the unknown. You know, we think that we know so much, but the more that we know, the more that we realize we don't know, that there is to know.
Synchronicity meaning, you know, things that come together that seem to just do it. In other words, it just happens. It's not something that's planned.
Yeah, well, one perspective is that things are coincidences.
Right.
And a different perspective is that things are synchronistic.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's just a shift in perspective, because which lies in giving something more meaning. So it's either giving something, making something appear to be random, or giving something meaning. And I think that at this time we have to give meaning to now, meaning to this constantly moving now. You know, and the more that we can be in the now,
yes, that's the word.
Present,
yeah,
the more that we can fully, you know, give our gift and be attentive and aware of what our interactions are with the people around us and with our environment.
So you're saying that we should be aware of synchronicities.
You know, well, synchronicities, I think, are like signposts that show us that we're on the right track, that we're going somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe, because, you know, as they say, there are no coincidences. Everything is happening in divine order, and synchronicities are part of that, yeah. So give us an example of a synchronicity in this shift of the Earth.
Well, talking about the Earth?
Or the world.
You know, well, with the shift, you know, chronos, you know, it comes from the word time. Time is like chronological, right? So
okay.
Synchronistic is when time syncs up.
Okay.
Two different perspectives on time, right?
Uh-huh.
So if we look at the planetary shift in terms of the calendar and the precession of the equinoxes, all of the planets are lining up, you know, in a way, like the Earth and the Sun and the center of the galaxy are lining up in a way that hasn't happened it completes a 26,000-year cycle.
Really? Well, someone just brought to my attention today that there's a cycle going on that's going to bring us into having 13 zodiac signs instead of just 12. Does that have something to do with all of that?
Yeah. Well, there actually used to be 13 zodiac signs.
Really?
But we transitioned it to having 12. I'm not exactly sure. That was something I was studying yesterday, as a matter of fact.
Really?
But synchronicity.
Yes. So synchronistic.
Really? That's right.
But yeah, I think that part of this is having the more esoteric part of astrology coming back into the mainstream. You know, not just having these teachings be, you know, a blip in the back of a newspaper where, you know, you try to fit everybody into one of 12 categories. You know, it's very easy for people to get skeptical about astrology when it's presented like that.
Well, sure, yeah.
But, you know, there's a science behind it. It's not just, you know, I mean, if you look at any sort of esoteric philosophy, it involves astrology, and it's studied very closely. You have your sun sign, where your sun is, the time of your birth. You have your rising sign, where your moon is, and then, you know, where all those planets are, you know, Mars, Venus,
cetera.
Neptune,
Right.
going on and on. You know, and their relationship to each other as well. And then all those things have an influence on us. So I think that, you know, when we look at our birth chart, we're really looking at a blueprint of, you know, these energies, these planetary energies, these cosmic energies, which are influencing our lives. But more importantly, understanding that they're influencing us, but they're not defining us, you know. And coming back to this awareness where we realize that we are the makers of our own destiny.
That's true.
You know? And then, like Charlie was saying, the more that we can come back to that present moment and understanding those energies that are influencing us in this present moment through astrology, you know, the more that we can develop.
In other words, we have to live in the present. We can't live in the past, and we can't project the future. We have to just live for right now, what's going on right now.
Well, it's like the past and the future are those influences on the now, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And so rather than living in the, you know, and being a victim to the influences or continuing some pattern by dwelling upon what the past was or what your fear or projection of the future is or attachment to it, you know, being able to live in the moment allows you to be able to see all the opportunities and to actually, you know, to learn from all of the reflections around us of ourselves, you know. So if I can listen to all the people around me more attentively, I'm giving my attention to that person, and then I can learn more from that person.
True.
You know?
Yeah, well, the fact is that we all have things to learn from each other, no matter how long or short our relationships are. You know, even somebody that, you know, you're walking down the street and there's someone that you never saw before, probably will never see again, coming in the opposite direction, and your eyes kind of meet, and maybe you might nod or something to this person and just keep going, or smile or whatever, and keep going. But you've just exchanged a message to each other, whether you are conscious of that message or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, but about the shift now,
Can I go back to the number 12 and 13 for one more moment?
12 and 13?
Yeah.
Go.
That we were talking about the zodiac signs?
Sure, go ahead.
I think that part of where we moved from 13 to 12 has to do with you know, how we look at 13 as a superstitious number. You know, there's not
To
a
me,
13th
it's a lucky
floor.
number, but a lot of people don't see it that way.
Right, exactly, because it's the perspective.
Right.
Right?
Yes, that's right.
So it's like, it's sort of the, you know, that perspective of being afraid of the unknown, you know, and the 13 is sort of this cosmic number, you know, that I think that it symbolizes more of like the goddess culture, or like the, you know, the culture that's returning to wisdom traditions that are based in intuition and sort of divination and mystical traditions. And we took all of the mystical traditions out of our religions,
True.
you know, when we made them patriarchal dogmatic religions.
Right.
So I think that's when we moved from 13 to 12, because it's sort of like trying to control the cycles from continuing to evolve, you know, from letting each person be empowered to be complete.
But now this isn't even going to happen, though, for probably hundreds of years. It's evolving.
Well, I don't know what hundreds of years is.
Yeah. And it's also dependent on so many different things, you know. It's dependent upon, you know, those planetary energies that we're talking about before, but, you know, it's also about the visions that we're putting out into the world. You know, if we have a vision that these things and these transformations are going to take hundreds of years, you know, that's what we're creating. You know, all these things, all our actions begin as words, and those words begin as thoughts.
I see.
So if we're thinking that it's going to happen through catastrophe and, you know, upheavals and, you know,
Well,
all
just
these things.
evolution, actually.
Yeah. But, I mean, these cycles happen, but I think we have a large say in how these cycles, you know, move through.
You mean like through the collective consciousness?
Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, when you see a movie like, you know, 2012 that just came out, you know, and it talks about this shift, you know, this planetary shift, but it happens in the movie through, you know, catastrophe and climate change and earthquakes and all this stuff.
Well, that's,
you know,
that's
and
a movie. They have to make it dramatic.
Oh, yeah. You know, I mean, you understand why, you know,
Sure,
Hollywood
it
makes
sells,
stuff
right.
like that.
It's funny.
But, you know, that's one version. That's one reality that's being put out there. We all have the ability to put out our own version of what that's going to be, you know. And I encourage people to look at it as an opportunity to create a more beautiful change.
So in other words, what you're saying is that whatever we perceive, that's what we can make. That's how we can make our lives. Yes, Miguel?
We're creating a new story. Whatever story we create, is the story we're going to end up with. And
So
I
in other words, what you perceive and what you put out there is what you're going to bring in.
I like that quote, if you stick with your old story, you get stuck in it.
Huh, that's very good.
So we're stuck in a story 2,000 years ago.
Well, but
And we have to,
Yeah, and each story is like an egg.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then the egg, there's a certain amount of time for the embryo to develop and to not need the egg anymore, and then to hatch into a new reality. So every time that we need to take a step back from our transformative process of becoming whole and complete and one with everything, then we sort of create another egg, and then the larger egg is like this story that we've been living since we started history, since we started writing.
You mean as an individual, each egg?
We each as an individual are, but then collectively we have a collective story, and we're all following this story. And what happens when that story ends? We need a new story, and that's what we're doing now. Is we're not dwelling upon the story that is that we don't like, or the story that seems to be outdated now. We're creating this new story just with our first, like Matt said, with our thoughts and intentions, and then by changing our thoughts, then we change our words follow, and our actions follow.
Now, give me an example of changing thoughts. Somebody's thinking one way and their life is going a certain way, and then they change their thoughts and their life improves.
Well, a lot of it, I think, is about, because the thoughts are like radio frequencies. So if we can change the switch, instead of thinking like, one example is people, they get constantly getting their bills in the mail, and they focus on the bills. It's like, oh, I don't have any money, and I don't have this, and I need this, and it's
I
like
can't do that.
When we say that we want something,
Yeah.
it means we don't have it. So
Okay.
we're all automatically separating ourselves from it with the desire for it. So instead of wanting something that we don't have, we should be appreciating what we do have and being open to the opportunities that the world is magical and we don't know what's going to happen next. So if we think positively about what could happen and think positively about what is happening and what we have already, then that switches the frequency, and then we start attracting things that are positive instead of things that we're dwelling upon and saying that are negative.
In other words, instead of wringing your hands and saying, I don't have this and I need that and I want that, just appreciate what you do have, because we all do have something going for us. We're not all destitute or anything like that.
We live in an amazing world. We have so much. We have more than we've ever had before.
That's true, especially in this country.
Right.
Yeah.
Other countries may not be able to say that, but here, especially.
Dr. Bruce Lipton, in his book that he wrote, I think was 2009, and it's entitled Spontaneous Evolution. He's been trying to prove for a decade that genes, contrary to what is conventionally accepted as genes controlling us, he has proven in a petri dish that we control our genes.
Really?
By changing the switch.
So in other words, if you have genes that you come from a family that had a certain disease and everybody got it, say for instance like diabetes or high cholesterol or something like that, you can change that.
You can change that.
With your attitude, your mind,
Yes.
your thoughts?
Yes, it's like the placebo effect.
The
And
what?
placebo effect.
Placebo, I see. Yes.
Right, and it's proven that 37% of the time it's worked, and doctors don't have any
I
explanation.
get that's a pretty good percentage, huh, considering?
Yeah, reality is mind.
Yeah.
There was a doctor who was giving his patient who was terminally ill with cancer this drug that just came out on the market, and it was getting really good reviews, and he said, okay, I'm going to give this to you, and he really talked it up and gave it to the patient. The patient's like, thank you, and he went, and his condition improved dramatically within
Really?
the next few months. Came back, he was looking great. But the doctor found out later on that the drug got reviewed again, and everybody said it was bogus.
Really?
It didn't work at all. So
Oh, I
he
get it.
told
No,
his
he
patient.
believed.
He told
Yeah,
his patient.
he told his patient this, and immediately
He went back.
Yeah.
he went back.
Wow.
Yeah. Then he said, "Oh, well, that's very interesting," because he kept giving him the same medication, I think. But later he gave him another medication, which was just a placebo, and he said, "This just came out," and they said it's even better, and really talked it up. And he's like, "Oh, thank you," and he went back and he took the medication and came back, and when he came back, sure enough, he was really better, and then he's like, "Oh, well, I was actually just." Giving you this
My
medication.
God, what's he doing to this poor guy?
Yeah. But I mean, the end of the story is that actually he did wind up dying, unfortunately. But it's really goes to show how powerful our thoughts are.
Yeah.
And I think it's also important to differentiate what we're talking about from like the concept of what many people perceive as like the message of The Secret. And that whole thing where, I think of something and I get $1 million. I think a lot of people really have a misconception about what that is talking about. I think that there is a certain part that's true, where you say, your mind creates your reality to a large extent. What we're talking about from thoughts to speech to action. And every journey starts with a thought.
Yeah.
Whether you want to create peace, whether you want to create love, financial stability in your life, it begins with the thought that that is a possibility,
So what would you suggest a person who wants to create financial stability or love or bring some positive difference into their life? What should they start thinking? How should they start thinking?
They should just believe that they could create
Just
it.
believe that it's coming.
Yeah, but
Or that it's there.
But then I think what we're talking about also is like creating the steps to making that a reality. Not just thinking it, but actually having the willpower and the discipline to put a plan into action, which is a lot of what we've been learning about with Green Bus Tour. We've had a vision of something that we've wanted to create for almost a year now. And slowly we realized that, okay, we've had the vision, we've had all these amazing people come together to create something to help our community, and we realized, oh wow, now we have to actually put this stuff into practice. We have to figure out the logistics of doing all these things. And it's a very different thing from just coming up with a concept,
This
so,
Green Bus Tour, Charlie's been telling me about it. Just very briefly, tell us a little bit about your Green Bus Tour and how anyone who is interested might contact you.
Sure, go for it.
Well, like Matt said, we've had a bus for about a year.
Yeah, I've seen the picture of it. Yeah,
But nice big school
big
bus.
green bus.
We painted it green.
Green, yes.
And the vision has actually been for a few years now. And what I envisioned was a new way of life on the planet that wasn't based on this old story. And how can we bring that into existence? How can we all live in a more conscious way together, where
And
we
help
cooperate?
with this planetary shift.
Yeah, well, that is what the planetary shift is. It's one and the same,
Right.
right?
Okay.
So we can. So what the Green Bus Tour is it's a way that we're reaching out to all the people within our community that keeps expanding because each person knows even more people, and we just the community keeps growing and being attracted to this magnet.
And why are they attracted? What is in it for them? What do they get out of it?
By working together, we can all create abundance.
Ah.
By working together.
You mean prosperity?
Well, no, I mean abundance.
Well, abundance can be anything. It could be good or bad, but prosperity is prosperity.
Well, is prosperity associated with money?
Well, yes, money and abundance of good stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, abundance is a good word too, except that prosperity really means bringing good things into your life, such as money and being able to live in a nice place and have a nice everything, car, whatever.
Well, what we're looking to do is inspire people to feel empowered to give their gifts in their community. Everybody has value. So if everybody if everybody does what they're called to do and what they're inspired to do, then the community benefits from it. And if we all start working together and stop looking at ourselves as so separate, and that I need, You know, if I don't feel like I need something that I have to take from society, I can just give, and then we all benefit from that.
Oh,
we
sure.
benefit
The
from
more you
working
give.
together, you know, so that what we're doing, aside from having a physical bus that facilitates mobility within this community and gets people
Okay.
out of the city to connect with nature, you know, organizing programs with arts organizations, with holistic health healers, with sustainability organizations, and helping them get their message out to the public.
So then you have an abundance of people then, and of people that are working together for a goal,
Yeah.
which is good. Yeah.
Right. It's a community of people with an intention.
Uh-huh.
Right, and everybody shares these same ideals and the same vision of a positive future for the planet. And so through our website that we're going to launch, you asked how people can get involved.
Right.
If they go to greenbustour.com, they'll find out more information about us, about what our vision is for the planet and for the community and for the project. And there's a way that everybody can be involved, because the Green Bus Tour isn't about us.
So you're online now at greenbustour.com, and people can get information about what your organization does.
Right.
Oh, that's wonderful. Good.
And
Greenbustour.com.
if you're a business, if you're an organization, you know, that's doing something that's positive for the community, to bring people together, to increase our global quality of life, then we want to hear from you. You know, email us.
That
you know,
sounds
find
like
us
a
online.
wonderful goal.
We would love to feature you on our website. You know, we're creating a new network, you know, of all these organizations that we're affiliated with, you know, where we can feature what they're doing, and people can interact. People can find out more information about your organization. You know, read valuable articles and watch videos about, and really find out more about solution-oriented tools that we can implement in our everyday lives.
Is this mostly non-for-profit people that you're looking for? Or?
Yeah, well, there's nonprofits, and there's also grassroots organizations that aren't even organized as a corporation. There's musicians, there's healers, there's people that are out there, planting rooftop gardens. You know, there's organic local farms that are outside the city.
Now, all of these things have to do with this planetary shift now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, to bring it back to that larger picture,
Right.
I think what we're doing is we are creating a community for this shift. For these consumers who are waking up and saying, this isn't right, these things are happening. Like, I don't agree. Like, why should we have to, settle for genetically modified food? Like, why aren't more farms, paying attention to this type of thing? Why aren't restaurants paying attention to the type of food that they're buying when they're giving their food, to their community? And I think more and more people are waking up and saying, they're demanding it. They're demanding these changes, and they also want to be able to find these businesses. So that's what we're doing. We're finding those businesses to make it easier for people who are involved in this shift to be the consumers that they want to be. Because I think most people, if they had the option and they were just educated a little bit, they would be able to make these decisions that would support their community, support a healthy lifestyle, and support a way of life that's more sustainable.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying, but the bottom line is, for a lot of these places, is the profit margin. And that's what they look at. They look at, how much money am I going to make from this? Why should I do the right thing when doing something else brings in more money? And that's what you really have to tackle with.
Well, that's why the monetary system is flawed in its sense of value.
Yeah, especially now that they're printing so much money and nothing to back it up.
There's nothing. It's paper.
It's paper.
And it's not even paper anymore. It's zeros and ones in a computer.
It's not even worth the paper it's written on.
People don't use paper anymore. They use the plastic card, and the plastic card is linked to some account, and then it has numbers in it that aren't even linked to any value.
Yeah, you're right.
You know what I mean? And people are realizing that more and more, the more that we get away from that. And what's important is that we look beyond the piece of paper or the piece of plastic at what it is that we're giving each other in the exchange. That's what's really valuable.
Yeah, could you elaborate on that?
Well, I think people want to feel that their companies that they're investing in aren't just in it for the profit. They want to see that these companies are actually waking up to these things that are happening. Like, there's a lot of suffering in the world. And I feel like, large corporations have not only a large part, in the creation of that suffering, but can also be part of the solution. If they choose to be, and we would love to partner with large corporations, when we see that change. Right now, there are very few that are really, walking the talk. But
Yeah, it's not about like saying, like having a carbon offset, to what you're doing wrong, and then you pay some money, and then like, oh, okay, everything's okay now. It's like a Band-Aid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We really want to see everybody start embodying these values.
Imagine Coca-Cola being a healthful drink.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could happen.
Same bottle, same color, but the health.
I mean, it's a good example because sodas
In other
used
words,
to
like
be
changing the
whatever they
recipe.
want. Yeah.
Well, sodas used to be health tonics. You would go to the pharmacy, and you'd get a root beer, and it would have or a ginger ale, and it would have ginger in it.
Ginger would for your
And
stomach.
then the medicinal roots are good for you.
Right,
you know what I
right,
mean? And now
right.
there's no medicinal roots in the sodas anymore. It's high fructose corn syrup and artificial flavors.
And don't forget, though, Coca-Cola once had real cocaine in it.
Yeah.
Probably before your time, I'm sure.
Right. Well, I think that there is a medicinal use for coca leaves.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
necessarily refined cocaine. That's like the medicine in our society is refined
I know.
herbal.
They put it through a lot of chemicals.
They take plants that have these constituents. Every plant, everything on the planet has a purpose, and everything
Right.
has a healing,
Yes.
balancing purpose. And if we take if we dissect the plant and look for the active chemical and then multiply it, it's like refining the coca leaves into cocaine. So then we get all these side effects. It affects us in a really weird way.
Well, sure, because don't forget, cocaine is one of the things that they use to refine it, and everything is gasoline. So when you're doing cocaine, you're actually ingesting gasoline, which can really good for you,
Yeah. Well, I don't even want to be breathing in gasoline on the
Me either,
on
no.
the highways anymore.
Right,
Our
right.
cars shouldn't be running on gasoline.
Right.
It's an old story.
Well, they're coming out with electric cars now, and I even heard that they're working on or have succeeded in a car that runs on water, which is great because, but you know why they're not going to come out with these things?
Why?
Because who's going to make a lot of money running cars on water?
well, the people who are trying to privatize water probably have a good say.
But how
in
could
that.
you do that? That's a public thing that
No, they
everybody
already
needs
are.
it.
That's the
They
thing.
are?
This
Yeah,
is like
yeah.
a very important
This is
thing
the
that's
most
happening.
important thing right now.
Yeah. I mean, you have, what are the three most important things? Water, food, and shelter.
Yeah.
And if you can control any one of those things, and Monsanto has had a large role in controlling food, and but there are other companies that are trying to control water and make it privatized. Especially in
Mostly
third
like-
world countries right now. It's a
Mostly
huge
like
issue.
Coca-Cola, Pepsi, all of the bottled water companies, that are run by these huge corporations, are the ones that are going around to all of the cities around the world that are becoming bankrupt, and they're saying, "Oh, we'll help you financially. We'll just buy your water supply."
Wow, that's amazing. That's news to me, actually. The thing is, though, I mean, here in this country, you go to your kitchen sink or your bathroom sink and you turn the tap on and water comes out.
Yeah, and you can drink it.
And you can drink it. At least here you can, anyway. But, how are they going to control that?
But it becomes so convenient for us to be able to buy a bottle of water instead of carrying like a canteen of water, or a Nalgene of water with us from our tap. Then we go and we buy bottled water, which has been shipped from around the world. It's in a plastic bottle. So plastic is made from petroleum. So there's no regulations on the water that's in that bottle. It could come out of the tap, and they could say it comes from some spring, and nobody's monitoring this, and then it costs us about, I think, 4 to 6 gallons of water to make a gallon.